What up, folks? What's going on? Welcome to episode 136 of the Spun Today Podcast, the podcast that is anchored in writing but unlimited in scope. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz, and I appreciate you listening. In this episode, I speak about creating my own Hot Ones episode and watching these three comedy specials: Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones, Andrew Schulz's crowd work special, and Bill Burr's Paper Tiger, with an honorable mention of Whitney Cummings' Can I Touch It? So if you're into stand-up comedy specials, if you're into funny shit, if you are interested in listening to my experience with eating the spiciest hot wings ever that burn on the way in and out, yes folks, it does burn on the way out, stick around so that you can listen in and laugh about all that good stuff. But first, a quick way that you can help support the show. For those of you that are new to the podcast, there's a couple ways you can help support. Rate and review the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or your favorite podcasting platform. Another way you can help support the podcast is by shopping on Amazon. But instead of going to Amazon.com, go to spuntoday.com and click on the affiliate links tab on my website. There you'll see an Amazon banner. Click that and it'll take you to Amazon.com. There you'll do your shopping like you normally do, and it will not cost you anything extra. But it will help support the podcast just for driving traffic to their website. Alright, so there's this show called Hot Ones on the First We Feast channel on YouTube. It's in its 10th season and is hosted by Sean Evans, who is an amazing interviewer, by the way. He asks awesome questions to each and every one of his guests that you most likely haven't heard them asked in other interviews. And these are pretty famous people. You have, let's say, folks like in the whole comedy circuit, Joey Diaz, Tom Segura, Bert Kreischer, Kevin Hart, Bill Burr, Desus and Mero, actors and actresses like Charlize Theron, Idris Elba, Halle Berry, like top-notch folks. And while they're on the show being asked these great questions, they are eating hot wings, spicy hot wings that progress in heat from the first one that they ate to the last one that they ate. And it's like bonkers level hot that it goes up to. Just to give you an idea, scale-wise, there's something called a Scoville scale, which is what the heat, or not heat, the spiciness of a hot sauce is measured by. And you have sauces like your common, like Tabasco or Dave's Red Hot or Sriracha sauce, like stuff like that. It's in like the 1,000 or 2,000 range. Like I'd say like 12 to 1,500 Scoville level range. And the first chicken wing that they eat is around that range. The last chicken wing that they eat is in the 2 million plus Scoville level range. So it goes from like the 1,000 range, which is not like crazy spicy sauces, but sauces that have a little zing to them. And in terms of hot, they're at the 1,000 to 1,500 range, and it goes all the way up in heat, in intensity, and spiciness to the 2 million plus range. Think about that. Think about that scale. So anyway, this show, Hot Ones, has curated a few sauces of their own, including the very first one, usually the first one that they use, which is a classic hot sauce. Was mid of the line, like around 5 or 6 or 7, but now has been demoted to like the number 4 hottest hot sauce on the lineup. A hot sauce that I really like called Los Calientes. And the final hot sauce that has the 2 million plus Scoville rating is called The Last Dab, which now there's like another version of. I think there's been like 3 versions of, like the original Last Dab, the Last Dab Redux, and now there's like in season 10 a triple X Last Dab or something like that. And I've heard mentioned on the show a bunch of times that, you know, you can sign up to subscribe to like get their hot sauces or just purchase individual bottles, etc. And I always thought it was just like the ones that they made. I had an idea one day of it being a cool, funny thing to try these hot sauces. I mean, like being on the actual show obviously would be like dope as hell, but it's not like this podcast is blowing up anytime soon, right? But I thought it would be cool to like order a couple of their hot sauces and try them and film it, etc. So I checked out their website, and they actually have through the company Heatonist, which does the bottling of, at least I know definitely their sauces that they curated, but probably others as well that are on the show's lineup. Anyway, through this site, which again I'll link to in the episode notes of this episode if you guys want to check it out. I have like no affiliation or anything like that, but I don't mind putting you guys onto dope shit when I find it. It'd be remiss if I didn't. They actually have on the site like all the hot sauces that are on the show, like all different brands and stuff like that. You can order like each and every one of them, and they have like these gift package bundles, so you don't have to like subscribe to their service to get like a new hot sauce every month or whatever. But if you're into hot sauce, you know, feel free. I'm actually into hot sauce, but not that into hot sauce to like subscribe to the service. So my wife actually got me for Father's Day a like gift package of these hot sauces, and I got in this gift package bundle, the first one, the classic, the Los Calientes, and the last one, the Last Dab. And if you're interested to see how I reacted, I will link to my episode of Hot Ones, the Spun Today edition, in the episode notes, or you can just search on YouTube and find the Spun Today channel on YouTube. You'll definitely see it on there, or just search Hot Ones Spun Today edition. I will tell you though, spoiler alert, the first 2 weren't that spicy at all. So the classic and Los Calientes, the classic I thought was like even less spicy than like a Tabasco type sauce, but it had a good flavor to it, which I liked, but definitely not spicy. And Los Calientes definitely does have some spice to it, has some kick to it, but I found it as like a little more spice than like a Tabasco or sriracha sauce or something like that, even though technically it should be like a lot or feel like a lot spicier, because the Scoville for Los Calientes is like 34,000 or 32,000 or something like that, and those other sauces again are like in the 1,000 to 2,000 range. But like I said in the video, I wouldn't mind having it as like an everyday kind of sauce, the Los Calientes, and whenever I've eaten food that does warrant hot sauce, like tacos or rice and beans and chicken, like stuff like that, I've been using the Los Calientes, and it's really good. Now the Last Dab, I made the mistake of, just for some reason I wanted more spice the other day, and I put a little tiny bit, little bit on my food, and it was just like unbearably hot. It's like sick spicy, that 2 million Scoville level range. It's like the type of thing that if you want to make like a big sancocho or something like that, or like a, you know, some sort of like hearty soup, and like make it spicy, and you have like this big ass baila or something like that, you would put like a couple drops of this into like a big gumbo, you know, like a big pot, and it'll make the whole shit spicy. Like that's how spicy this hot sauce is. It's crazy. But yeah, I filmed myself going through eating these chicken wings, and so you guys could see my reaction in real time. You know, I did the videotaping myself, like with the tripod, and you can hear my son in the background wondering what the hell I was doing. So pardon that in terms of cinematography quality. And I did the editing myself using Final Cut Pro. And I try to make it look like the actual Hot Ones show as much as I could. Like I couldn't do like the all blacked out background. But in the beginning, I do like a red tint on like an excerpt of the video at the point of the hot sauce like hitting me. And I put that like in the front of the video. And then in between like each sauce, when I introduce each sauce, I was able to pan in how the show shows like the hot sauce and the Scoville level for each individual sauce. Like on the actual show, I was able to include that in my video as well. And I was really happy with how it came out. I kind of like edit in my head when I do like little things like this. Like I had an idea for the video in my head, and I knew the little pieces that I wanted in it, and I kind of like worked it out, days in advance in my mind. So when I sat down to actually do it, it's fairly easy to do, even though I'm not like as technically savvy with video editing. But yeah, it was a fun little mini project, and I was happy with it. Check it out. I'll link to it in the episode notes, and you all can let me know what you think. And while you're at it, subscribe to my YouTube page, folks. You'll get a lot of extras like that video, and then like mini clips of the podcast that are much more digestible than a full-length episode. You just may enjoy it. Alrighty, so I checked out 3 dope comedy specials. And the first one up that I'm going to speak about is Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones. Dave Chappelle's, I would say much anticipated, but I didn't, even though I knew he had originally signed a like 3 special deal with Netflix when at the time of him like releasing his last 2 technically, like when that news came out of him making like 50 mil with Netflix to release 3 specials, then he came out shortly after that with the 2 specials in one, like 2 specials drop at the same time, which I don't know if that counted as 1 and 2, and this one that just aired, Sticks and Stones, is the 3rd, or if that was just like a package. I haven't put out content in a while, so I want to get all of this out there. Here's one with like a little bonus extra. But I don't know. One of them was called Equanimity, and the other one was Bird's Eye View, or something like that. And those were hilarious, dope. And this one, Sticks and Stones, did not disappoint. Dave Chappelle is absolutely one of the GOATs. He is so masterful at what he does. The way he speaks, his mannerisms, they're all hilarious. Like the up and down cadence in his voice. He can like make you laugh at like different pitches. Like he'll get really high or he'll say something really deeply. And he knows how to use those tools absolutely effortlessly. I thought some bits were a little bit drawn out-ish, and there were definite like laugh out loud moments. Like I can't say I remember off the top of my head, but there definitely were a few. I've heard some critiques of it not being like his funniest special, which I can't say I agree or disagree, but if you do have that opinion, like I see why you would have that opinion. And me personally, I love stand-up comedy, but it's not just about the funny for me. I know for a lot of people it is, and it makes sense, right? It's comedy, you're supposed to laugh and stuff, but there's another layer to comedy that I really appreciate, and I really love it when a comic gives it to me, which is when the comic makes you think, when the comic shows you a different perspective on something that it's either something that you never even thought about looking at in that way, or something that you did feel like viscerally in that way, you just were never able to articulate. And I absolutely love stuff like that. I feel like it's like getting a little bit of medicine with your sugar, if you will. It's not just about the laughs, although that's a big part of it, but just as equal in terms of appreciation for me, part of stand-up comedy is that aspect of making you think and contemplate and look inward and figure out how even you feel about certain topics like transgenders, like politics, or, random current events. And I feel like Chappelle like delivers that in spades with his comedy. And it was just a lot more of that in this particular Sticks and Stones special. There was something outside of the actual special called the epilogue that you guys can check out on Netflix. That, like, it's within, like, if you watch the special, you can play the epilogue next kind of thing. It's like one of those like bonus features. And it's like 20 to 20 something minutes long, and it's fucking hilarious in and of itself. And it's very vulnerable at the same time, which I liked. He pretty much just opened it up to the crowd in like a Q&A session and showed like the best clips in the epilogue from like the different shows that he did the Q&A at. And there was this one story in particular about a transvestite or transgender. Honestly ignorant to the distinction there. And I forget how he references her in the epilogue of the special. But her juxtaposed with this other lady that was also at one of his shows. So this lady that was at one of his shows supposedly, storms out, and she makes this big scene and fuss, and she's yelling at him that he can't say stuff like that. And before she walks out of the room, she says that she was raped. Dave Chappelle said, that obviously fucks up the mood in the whole room. And what he decided to tell her was, it's not your fault that you got raped, but it's not my fault either, bitch. Get the fuck out. He's just like hilariously unexpected shit like that. So he says that, and then he juxtaposes that story with the story of Daphne, the transgender person, and she supposedly went to like 4 out of the 6 shows that he taped that weekend, and or he had that weekend in preparation for the taping for the special, where he was working out that material. And he was saying how she was like laughing hysterically at everything and at every show. And something that resonated with me that he said that made me think of, how they say like laughter is the best medicine. He said that he noticed that she was like laughing like wholeheartedly, head back, smiling with all her teeth. And he said it seemed like she was like letting go of something heavy, like through that laughter, which I thought was dope. That like resonated with me. That was like a, healing power of comedy type shit. Anyway, he goes on to say that he like speaks to her at the end. He tells her, I was surprised that, you didn't get offended because I had a lot of transgender jokes and stuff like that. And she said, no, of course not. I thought it was hilarious. And she had read about Dave Chappelle in the New York Times, stating that the New York Times, wrote a piece about Dave Chappelle blaming him for normalizing R. Kelly because he was saying like so many jokes about R. Kelly. Supposedly, Daphne, the transgender, says, I wonder why they don't write stories about you normalizing transgenders since, you say jokes about them. Like, why isn't that topic looked at, with the same energy, with the same application of logic? And I thought that was an amazing point. And whether true or a true interaction or not, he, got that point across for sure. And like mitigated for himself the backlash that he knew he was going to get for having, all these LGBTQ related jokes in his set. But regardless, again, Dave Chappelle is definitely one of the GOATs. One of my absolute favorite comedians. Him and Bill Burr are like The Wire and Breaking Bad. One is the number 1 show of all time. One of them is a very close second, and I don't know which one's which. That's how I feel about Dave Chappelle and Bill Burr. But yeah, check it out. It's called Sticks and Stones on Netflix. Next up, Andrew Schulz. I've been listening to Andrew Schulz for some time now. He has a couple dope podcasts. One of them is The Brilliant Idiots, which you guys have definitely heard me mention in the past, either through this podcast and or through my Midday Monday boost letter, where I feature a podcast every week, and I name it the podcast of the week that I'm recommending for you folks to listen to, or any of the subscribers of the Midday Monday boost letter, which you can subscribe to totally for free at spuntoday.com/subscribe if you're interested. So he has that podcast, which he hosts together with Charlemagne the God from The Breakfast Club, and also New York Times best-selling author of Black Privilege and Shook Ones, Anxiety Playing Tricks on You. 2 different books. One of them is Black Privilege, and the other one is called Shook One. I kind of said it like all together the first time around, so it sounded like one book, but it's actually 2. Dose. And Andrew Schulz also has another podcast called Flagrant 2 with Akash Singh, and which is another comic, Indian guy, and Kaz, whose full name I do not know. But that podcast is more like sports specific, but that's what I love about podcasts, because they can speak about like current events and all types of shit. That I love the loose format of podcasts, because you get perspectives of people. You get to see how do I explain it? You get to see more sides of a person than just one narrow perspective on one specific topic. So you kind of get to see a more holistic view of the person. You kind of get to see what other things inform the thoughts and ideas of this person that they might have on something related to sports. Like when you hear them, go off on a tangent and speak about politics, for example. So it's like this podcast. I speak about a whole bunch of different things, but my lean is towards writing. I do like writing specific episodes where I go over some of my free writing, or share short stories with you guys, or tell you guys about writing my novel, Fractal, which you can find a link to in the episode notes of this episode. But also in like when I speak about shows and movies, and I get into like the dialogue writing that I'm into, whether it be Aaron Sorkin's or Quentin Tarantino's, like their styles of writing, etc., etc. So I'm leaning towards writing. So there's usually that like kind of through line in my episodes. But I speak about all types of shit, right? Like now I'm speaking about comedy specials. I was spoken about MMA, UFC, boxing, movies, TV shows, etc., etc., etc. So that's what I like about other podcasts, like, Flagrant 2. It's heavier on the sports side, but they also speak about a bunch of other shit. The Brilliant Idiots, where they banter about current events and give their insights from, Charlemagne's side of being a co-host of one of the biggest platforms in radio, in The Breakfast Club. And Andrew Schulz coming from a comedic point of view and on his way to becoming one of the most popular up-and-coming comics. And it makes for like really interesting shows, really good content. And anyway, so I've been listening to Schulz for a minute, and I like his point of view. I like his, although I don't agree with him, I like his, well, let me rephrase that. I said that wrong. Not that I don't agree with him, period. Like, even though I don't agree with him on every single thing that he says, is what I meant. I really appreciate his ability to take the contrarian point of view on things and be able to sensibly debate for that side of any argument. Seems like allows people to like really consider that other side of things, whether they're on this side or really are on that side. And it's important whenever possible to kind of look at a 360 view, kind of looking at an argument at a point through the lens of a 360 view. Anyway, that's what I think folks like Andrew Schulz bring to the table in terms of being contrarians. And Schulz is largely credited with the business model, if you will, approach to stand-up comedy being releasing your shit for free on YouTube and Instagram and platforms like that, as opposed to just relying on Netflix and Amazon and HBO and Showtime to purchase and put out your content for you. And he had an idea of putting out and he's done this in the past with his first hour special that he wasn't able to sell to like Comedy Central or any of these other outlets, and called Views from the Cis, and cis being cisgender, which just means like white male, and Views from the Cis is kind of like a play on Drake's album Views from the Six. And he released that on Instagram and YouTube in, I think it was like 10 or 15-minute increments, and it was like once every Friday for like a month, and until he released the whole thing for free. And then after like the last fourth piece, he released like the whole thing together so you could watch it like together, and that got a shitload of attention and downloads and views and stuff. And this one, he decided to kind of sort of do the same thing, but to release it, it's like a half hour long, release it all together on YouTube, and it's just a off the dome crowd work special, similar to one that I saw back in the day that Todd Barry did called Crowd Work back in 2014. And it's just him, fucking people in the crowd. It's brilliant. It's funny. It's hilarious. Something interesting that he decided to do, which when I heard the approach initially, kind of sort of didn't make sense to me. But it was that he wanted to drop it purposely on the same day of Dave Chappelle's special, the one that just came out, Sticks and Stones. And I heard different versions or different reasons why, different like approaches why, which was like something along the lines of, when people watch a comedy show and they're like in that vibe, in that zone of wanting to hear comedy, they'll want to continue consuming it. And especially if they enjoy Dave Chappelle's, and they're gonna want to look for other shit, and they might stumble upon his, and boom, there's some fresh content there. And I also heard the approach of just wanting to see the reaction to one special, which is from the GOAT Dave Chappelle, that's polished, perfect bits on a big platform, versus Andrew Schulz, a lesser known comic that is putting it out for free on YouTube, and it's just crowd work. It's not polished bits and material. And he wanted to see how those two like paradigms, if you will, juxtaposed to each other, how they fared, how they did. And again, I didn't think that was a good kind of like idea to drop it the same day, and he was proved right. I think Charlemagne also was said in the podcast that he kind of didn't get like that approach, but whatever. Schultz kind of stuck to his guns, did it that way, and it to date has already over 1,066,000 views on YouTube, which is awesome. It's outstanding. And I just want to share one more thing on this special, which was one of my favorite bits. And you can see how quick and clever and how fast Schultz is on stage. He has an Indian dude, or a Sikh dude, in the audience, and he points out how those like metal bracelets that they wear are symbolic to how Sikhs were the warrior class of their people back in the day, and they used to have these like large metal like sheaths on their wrists, and that was to like block sword attacks and shit like that. And now it's just like a metal kind of like fashion bracelet that they wear, and all it's good for anymore is just to rest on the steering wheel while they're driving Uber. That was just, and he just did that like on stage while he's like interacting with the dude. Like told that piece of history, which I don't know if true or not. The way he made that connection to like Indian Uber drivers and having that bracelet, which all Indian dudes really do wear. Okay, maybe not all, but a shit load enough for it to be like a common thing that everybody recognizes. It was just absolute genius. But anyway, guys, check it out. It's called the Crowdwork Special, and it's by Andrew Schulz, and I'll link to it in the episode notes. And last but not least, Bill Burr. Bill Burr's new special is called Paper Tiger. And I'll start off by saying, full disclosure, this was not my favorite Bill Burr special. It honestly wasn't even my favorite of these three that I mentioned. I would put it in the last place if I was measuring it up against these three. But like I said before, Bill Burr is like my top one or two favorite comic. And I've gone to go see him, and I saw him at MSG. My wife and I did, and had a blast. And I'm trying to remember, I think my favorite special from Bill Burr is the one that has the joke where he's like playing catch with his like imaginary kid, and he's like snapping at the kid and tells him to like turn around, and the kid's like, "But Dad, I want to look at you." That special, I gotta go back and watch it again. I remember just like nonstop laughing and like having to pause and rewind it because I was laughing so hard that I missed like the next bit. That was my favorite one, but that's definitely not saying that this one's like not worth watching or anything like that. It's just is what it is. It wasn't my number one, but if it was yours, I wouldn't be surprised either. It was interesting to see. It was fun to see Bill Burr as a new dad, even though like I've been exposed to that a bit. Listening to his podcast, the Monday morning podcast, and he mentions his daughter. You could hear her like in the background sometimes, and his wife and stuff like that, because he records the podcast mainly like from his house. Me being a new dad myself, I gravitate towards that. I like hearing other folks' experience or take on their version of the same experience that we're going through. And the way he's starting to like create bits and jokes around his daughter is interesting and funny. Particularly how he's like that his daughter has seen glimpses of him, of the real him, quote unquote, but he tries to like keep it together around her. But he has like such a bad temper that sometimes he like snaps or almost snaps, and he sees that she's like starting to like pick up with the fact that he's like a little psycho. So all that stuff was pretty funny. Him having to let go of his dog was sad. Cleo, she's been part of previous specials of his. She's been part of like big bits, and another one that I've heard in his podcast as well, like in the background and shit. And when he tells her to like leave the room because she's like fucking around with something or like scratching at the floor, that was fucking sad. But it was a mean fucking pit bull, and he has a little baby in the house now. So gotta pick one of them, right? I love Bill Burr's ability to, similar to Dave Chappelle, unapologetically attack social commentary. Or I said that wrong. They unapologetically provide social commentary and attack like the PC bullshit within it. I've always found that type of comedy to be refreshing. I remember not liking like segments of like having to do like robot sex doll stuff, which I didn't like too much. But it did remind me of Whitney Cummings' comedy special, which I also saw, and I thought was pretty good. Definitely had some funny moments, and I like Whitney Cummings. I listened to her on Rogan a bunch, and I've heard her on like The Fighter and the Kid and other podcasts as well. She, if you guys don't know, is a stand-up comic, obviously, and also a writer, and she was a creator of the show Two Broke Girls, which I thought was a very funny show that my wife actually put me onto it while she was watching it. Anyway, Whitney Cummings has a special called Can I Touch It? That's also out on Netflix that you guys should check out. The reason why that Bill Burr, like robot sex doll stuff reminded me of her was because she had a life-size artificial intelligence doll replica of herself made. I hope I heard wrong, but I believe she said that she wasted $250,000 to get this done. $250,000. I hope she said $25,000 or misspoke and meant $25,000, which to me in and of itself would be insane. But $250,000 is like sick. But I also want that number to be true because it's like awesome to see like comics having like fuck you money at that level while and from doing what they love to do. But anyway, this life-size look-alike robot thing, artificial intelligence thing, she brought it to Rogan's podcast, so I like saw it on there for the first time. She speaks about it like throughout the special, and then she winds up bringing it out at the end, which was pretty funny, and does like the end of her like last couple bits or whatever with the robot there. And after the special, which is the coolest part, she shows like the whole process of having this robot created, which she had spoken about on Rogan's podcast. And I think it was like a several month long process to creating like specific molds where she had to like dip her head in molds and like her face and her ears. She has she has dogs, I believe pit bulls as well actually. And one of them, she was like playing with it and like roughhousing or whatever. And one of them like bit her ear, like playing around, but it's a fucking pit bull, so their playing around bite is like a real fucking bite, and it bit off like a piece of her ear. And she had to have I think she has a scar, or she had to have it like sewn back on or some shit like that. But anyway, like all those scars and stuff, like the detail, it's so detailed, like the molds that they made to create the AI robot of her, that it also has like all those like ear scars and like shit like that. It was like a sick process the way they showed it, but really interesting. Anyway, that's what that portion of Burr's special made me think of. But yeah, I love the social commentary, and Bill Burr is absolutely one of the GOATs, one of my favorites, and I'm glad folks like him and Chappelle and Schulz are out there pushing the envelope in a freedom of speech, say whatever the fuck you want to say when you want to say it type of way, checking the bullshit that needs to be checked, and allowing for others' right to do the same. And with that, folks, I wrap up episode 136 of the Spun Today Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, rate and review this episode, folks. And not only that, stick around for a few more minutes, listen to some tunes in the background, and listen to a few more dope ways that you can help support the podcast if you choose to, like where you can purchase my books at, or t-shirts and coffee mugs, or supporting on Coffee, on Patreon, follow me on the social networks at Spun Today, in case you were wondering. Stick around. I'll give you guys all those details in a bit. Would you like to receive a short email from me once a week? You know that feeling you have on a Monday at work when you have absolutely nothing to look forward to except for lunch? Have no fear, the Midday Monday Boost letter is here. In this short weekly newsletter, you will receive 5 things. 1 is a photograph of the week from a photographer. A podcast of the week. I listen to tons of podcasts, dozens and dozens of podcasts, hundreds of episodes, and I cherry pick the best ones, and I share them with you here. You'll also receive a video of the week, which could be anything from a rap battle to a TED Talk. You receive a quote of the week, something to let marinate in your mind, and a word of the week so that you and I can both step up our vocab. So if any of that sounds of interest to you, check it out. Check out the subscribe page at spuntoday.com/subscribe. Drop in your email address and you'll receive the very next one. For any writers or creatives out there, I have a questionnaire. It's a 5-question questionnaire that anyone is free to fill out. It's located at spuntoday.com/questionnaire. And what it is 5 open-ended questions related to your craft. It's things like what inspires you to write or create whenever you don't feel the inspiration to do so. What are your favorite apps or tools or tricks to trick yourself into getting into the mind state of actually creating? What inspires you, etc., stuff like that. And what I do with your responses is share them on a future episode of the podcast. Now, you can choose to remain anonymous. If you choose to, you have that option right there when you fill out the questionnaire. And if you do not choose to remain anonymous, I give you a shout out on the podcast and promote for free whatever it is that you have going on. So I appreciate you in advance for sharing that with me, as well as the rest of the listeners of the Spun Today podcast, which would stand to gain from you filling out the questionnaire. Now, you can help support the podcast in a myriad of ways. One way, which does not cost you anything and is most popular within the podcasting community, is by shopping on Amazon using my affiliate links banner. So the way that works is you go to spuntoday.com/affiliate links, or just click on the affiliate links tab at the top center of the page. And there you will see a banner for Amazon. You literally just click on that and it takes you to Amazon's website where you do your shopping like you normally do. It does not cost you anything extra, but Amazon will give me a kickback just for driving traffic to their website. So that would be a big help. It literally costs you nothing extra financially, just costs you a couple of extra clicks of your mouse before you do your Amazon shopping. The iTunes banner that's on that same page works the same way. So if you're purchasing music or movies or whatever it is on iTunes, feel free to go through my affiliate link portal there as well. If you want to make a one-time PayPal donation, feel free to do so. There's a PayPal donation button on there as well. Within that same tab, you'll also find a link to the Spun Today Viral Style store. Now, the Viral Style store is a store where you can get Spun Today merch, whether it's a coffee mug or a t-shirt that I personally designed. And spoiler alert, I'm no Ralph Lauren or, whoever designs Gucci stuff. But I did create the design of those shirts myself. I have a couple t-shirts on there. One that says, for example, "Right Need Every Day," which is a play off of Snoop, Dre, and Nate Dogg's "Smoke Weed Every Day." So it's "Right Need Every Day" with like a puff cloud of smoke behind it. I have a podcast versus everybody t-shirt and just stuff like that. So check it out. The link to the Viral Style store is also there. You can also help support the podcast on a reoccurring basis if you become a Patreon supporter. Now, Patreon is pretty cool, and there's a little video explanation of what it is and how it works, but I'll try to do my best to summarize it here. Basically, you sign on to Patreon, which is a free service, free account, and you can support not just myself, but any other podcasters or creatives that also have Patreon pages. And you can choose to, for example, donate $1 to them on a per episode basis. So the Spun Today podcast has 2 episodes a month. So if you donate $1 to it, it'll be $2 a month, basically. And you set it up, and it just happens automatically on a reoccurring basis. There are 0 fees. You can cancel at any time. No hassle, no bullshit. And it's a cool way to help support, and is much appreciated. And also, it's not just like for example, a PayPal donation, which is just that. But through Patreon, it allows the creator, in this case being myself, to set up a reward system, if you will. So if you donate $1 per episode, you are considered a tier 1 supporter. If you donate $3 per episode, you are a second tier supporter, etc., etc. And it goes up to 4 tiers. And each tier gets different things. Like tier 1 gets a free Spun Today bookmark and a shout out on the podcast. Tier 3 gets gets those two things from tier 1, as well as a free writing piece that's not posted on my website or available to anyone else, etc., etc. So check that out if you will, and visit my Patreon page at Patreon, patreon.com/Spun Today. Another great, amazing way to help support the podcast is to rate and review it. This costs you absolutely nothing. Whether you listen on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, on Pocket Casts, on Overcast, on Player FM, on Google Play, on YouTube, on Tumblr, or if you listen on Podbay or any other of your favorite podcast apps. Please rate and review the episode. It really is the number one way to help the show gain traction, gain exposure. You could also share it with friends and family and tell them, check out what this idiot is saying. Some of it is actually pretty good. Or it all fucking sucks and you should listen and laugh. But as long as you're listening, it would be much appreciated. So rate and review the podcast wherever it is that you listen. Follow me on Twitter or on Instagram at Spun Today. Like the Facebook fan page at facebook.com/Spun Today. Subscribe to my YouTube page as well. All podcast episodes are available on YouTube, as well as clipped versions. For example, with the Random Rant episodes, I speak about a bunch of different topics instead of having the full episode alone, which is also available on YouTube. But you also have snippets of the different topics broken up into more digestible chunks. So check that out. You can also support by checking out my book, Make Way For You, Tips for Getting Out of Your Own Way. It's a quick, short read if you're looking for some inspiration and motivation, and you can find out more about it at spuntoday.com/books. There you'll find a video of me telling you all how the book came to fruition, as well as a couple of audio excerpts. If you're interested, you can purchase it wherever books are sold: Kindle, iBooks, Kobo, in ebook or paperback format, which you can find on Amazon. Also, for being a Spun Today listener, I can also send you a free copy. Right there on that same landing page at spuntoday.com/books. Drop in your email address at the bottom of the page, and I'll shoot you over a copy in the format of your choice. And that's all I got, folks. Thanks again for checking out this episode. And as always, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening.